we are now looking at various officials, Sri Lankan officials, addressing a news conference in Colombo. Let's listen to them.
And at the cabinet meeting, which was held a little while ago, we decided to inform the people through the media by way of this press conference about the latest developments and the situation in the country. First of all, we express our heartfelt condolences. And as a responsible government, we have determined to investigate into the incidents. And some people say that if they were in power, these types of incidents would not have happened. But I know, as a member of that previous government, even during their time when they were ruling, these similar incidents happened, despite the fact that there were checkpoints and roadblocks at every foot of the high main road. So these things happened even during the previous regime. But the responsibility of the government and the security forces is to investigate into these incidents and to bring the culprits to the book. And we express our heartfelt condolences to the families, the aggrieved families of the deceased people and those who were injured. And as members of the government, we are more grieved than any others about these loss of lives and the destruction. And on the 4th of April, 14 days before these incidents occurred, we had been informed about these incidents. On the 9th of April,
Chief of National Intelligence.
On the 9th of April, Chief of National Intelligence, on behalf of Chief of National Intelligence, has written a letter. And in these letters, many names of these terrorists, members of the terrorist organization, have been written down in this letter. And then on the 11th of April, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Mr. Ratnayaka, and he has written a letter to many other directors of police. But those letters have not been copied to the Prime Minister and the President. And Prime Minister has not been informed about these letters and about these revelations. Maybe because Prime Minister is not the Minister of Defence, or Prime Minister is not the Minister of Internal Security or the Police. And this letter indicates that Nazir Jamal, leader, has planned to trigger a series of attacks in this country. And the letter also mentions the importance of tightening security of the VIPs.
මේක අනුශාංගික වැඩක්. මේකේ මූලිකම වැඩ පිළිවෙල තියෙන්නේ මේ පිළිබඳව මොකක්ද රටේ ආරක්ෂාව පිළිබඳව ගත්තා වූ ක්‍රියාමාර්ග.
What is important is what are the steps that were taken in view of the security of the country or the defense of the country.
අපේ ආරක්ෂක මණ්ඩලය රැස් වෙනවා. රැස් වුණාට අපේ අග්‍රාමාත්‍යතුමාට කැඳවීමක් කළා නැහැ. අපේ අග්‍රාමාත්‍යතුමා හැමදාම ජනාධිපති ක්‍රමය ආරම්භ වූ දින සිට
when the Security Council assembled, the Prime Minister was not invited to take part in the Security Council.
ඔක්තෝබර් මාසේ 26 ඔක්තෝබර් මාසේ 26 පස්සේ අර බොරුවට හරියාපු අගමැති වාඩි වුණා මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ. එතකොට දෙසැම්බර් 20 ඉඳලා තමයි මේ තත්ත්වය ඇති වුනේ.
On the 26th of October, Mahinda Rajapaksa was appointed the Prime Minister, and since then, the current Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe was not invited to participate at the Security Conference or Security Assembly. And currently, the President of the Republic is on an overseas visit. And President is the Minister of Defence and Minister in charge of the police. And when the incidents occurred, the Defence Minister, who is the President, is not in the country, and Minister in charge of the police, who is the President, is also not in the country. And after these bomb blasts occurred, only the Prime Minister came to know that there had been a circular. When the intelligence reports indicate a threat to security, what the security divisions do is they inform the VIPs and they strengthen security of the VIPs.
ඒ තරම් නිහතමානීව ඔහු ගියා. මොකද මේකේ තියෙන ඛේදවාචකයේ තිබෙන මේ තියෙන තත්ත්වයට බැරෑරුම්කම නිසා.
And Prime Minister was
එතුමාට විනාඩි 20ක්
Prime Minister was prepared to
විනාඩි 20ක්
assemble a security meeting.
රාජ්‍ය ආරක්ෂක අමාත්‍යවරයාගේ රුවන් විජේවර්ධන මහත්තයාගේ කාමරේ වාඩි වෙලා ඉන්නේ. මේ අපේ රටේ අග්‍රාමාත්‍යතුමා. එතුමා ඒකත් ඉවසගෙන විනාඩි 20 ඉඳලා ආරක්ෂක මණ්ඩලයේ මුලාසනේ දාලා ආරක්ෂක මණ්ඩලයට අවශ්‍ය දෙන්න.
And the Prime Minister chaired the Security Council meeting.
1988 ඉඳලා ආරක්ෂක මණ්ඩලයේ නිත්‍ය සමාජිකෙක් වශයෙන් හිටපු පුද්ගලයෙක්. හැමදාම එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂ.
And Prime Minister has been a permanent member of the Security Council since 1988.
රැස්වීම් වලට සහභාගී වෙලා ආරක්ෂක කටයුතු පිළිබඳ අත්දැකීමක් තිබෙන කිසිම දේශපාලනඥයෙක් අද මේ ලංකාවේ නැහැ.
And Prime Minister is the most experienced person who has chaired the Security Councils and who has participated in Security Council meetings since 1988. There is no other politician who is more experienced than the Prime Minister, current Prime Minister Mr. Wickremesinghe. But he has not been invited to take part in Security Council meetings since 26th of October, when the Prime Minister was sacked and Mr. Rajapaksa was appointed for the position. And when the Prime Minister summoned the Security Council, they did not participate. The Security Council members did not participate at the Security Council meeting. And this is the only country where, when the Prime Minister summons the Security Council, they don't assemble. And this is the only country such things happen.
දැන් මේකෙදි මේ සියලු තොරතුරු ලැබිලත් අපිට මේක වළක්වා ගැනීමට බැරි වුණා.
And unfortunately, despite all these revelations by the intelligence units, we could not avert these attacks. And we have got the information from the officials responsible, and the officials responsible, they say that they have informed the relevant people about these security threats and intelligence reports. We were surprised when we read these reports. After the incidents only, we had the access to these reports. We are not trying to evade responsibility, but this is the fact. We were surprised to see these reports, which have revealed about possible attacks on these during this period. But even the Prime Minister was not made aware of this. So why we are divulging this to you all is, otherwise you will point your fingers at us and ask us, what were you doing all this time? We had discussions with the Prime Minister yesterday, and we got instructions from the Prime Minister. And we also consulted the former defense ministers, and we got their instructions as well. And we don't believe that these attacks had been carried out by a group of people who are confined to this country only. And there is an international network without which these types of attacks could not have been, could not have succeeded. And intelligence reports had said that during this period, this Easter period, these types of attacks can take place. And they have also mentioned the Christian places of worship are targeted, and the places of tourist interest are targeted. So we have to investigate why, as to why the people concerned did not take prompt action, despite the intelligence reports indicating possible attacks during this period.
ඒ ප්‍රමාණය එතකොට තවමත් මලසිරුරු හොයා ගන්නවා තවම හෝටල් වලට දැනුයි මහේස්ත්‍රාත් විභාග ආරම්භ වුණේ.
And the magisterial inquest have started in the places where the people were killed.
500කට අධික ප්‍රමාණයක් නැවත අපිට මේ තුවාල වුණා ආබාධිත වුණා.
Over 500 people have been injured and disabled.
So we have been listening to the Sri Lankan Health Minister Rajitha Senaratne, who is addressing a news conference following Sunday's attacks across Sri Lanka, in which 290 people have been killed, 500 injured. The Health Minister elaborating on the reports we've heard that there was warning that such an attack, that these kinds of attacks might take place, and around Easter Sunday even, he said, intelligence reports said these types of attacks can take place during Easter, that Christian places of worship, that tourists' interests are targets, and we have to investigate why the people concerned didn't take prompt action despite the reports. Let's go to our correspondent, Charles Stratford. He's been listening in to that news conference, and he is joining us from the capital, Colombo. This is the Health Minister to Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, Charles, pretty much pointing the blame at the President, Maithripala Sirisena, who he says is overseas, who is also the Minister in charge of intelligence. And this is, of course, keeping in mind the massive political fallout that we saw between the presidency and the Prime Minister at the end of last year.
Yeah, it's surprising. He went into quite explicit detail as well, mentioning that at least 2 letters had been written by members of the security establishment, warning about potential attacks in those areas that indeed were attacked. You know, Christian churches and tourist sites, and it seems as if there has been, certainly according to the Health Minister, a serious failure in the government basically responding to these letters. He did actually say, though, that the Prime Minister was not aware, according to him, was not aware that these letters, that this circular, as he described it, had been put out until yesterday, until those almost 300 people were killed. Interestingly, also, he talks to the point that, as suspected, such a highly coordinated attack like this, in all likelihood, would have had to have some sort of involvement on an international level from terror networks on the international, on a global level there. And we've already heard from the Prime Minister, certainly yesterday, saying it was very important that the international community helped in trying to gather intelligence to try and find out who exactly was behind these attacks. But also, at the beginning of his statement there, he actually comes out with the name of an organisation here, an organisation called Tawheed Jamaat, which is described as a local radicalised network here. As we know, nobody has claimed responsibility for this yet. We know that at least 24 people have been arrested, and we understand are being interrogated, and that group includes women as well. But it was the first time, really, that we've heard the government begin to intimate, at least, that they know who was behind this attack. But as you say, a massive indication, seemingly, of a huge mess-up, a terrible security failure by the intelligence services here in terms of getting that communication to the relevant authorities, to the government itself, in order to prevent these attacks.
Absolutely, Charles. And what was really striking about the news conference is that already the blame game has started, and we are seeing a politicization of the security failure.
That's right. Analysts were saying that yesterday, as soon as the Prime Minister came out with a statement saying that it seems as if there had been an indication or prior warnings of an attack, it was interpreted as being a bit of a broadside, if you like, at the President. We know last October, there was what was described as the biggest constitutional crisis here in Sri Lanka in living memory. The president sacking the Prime Minister. There's a huge rift between the two. There's a lot of competition between the two, and the country has suffered both politically and economically in the subsequent months, or certainly during that crisis last year that lasted about 7 weeks. And again, after such an horrific experience for Sri Lankans, and indeed, of course, the foreigners that have been killed in this community, it seems like that blame game is surfacing again, and it seems as if politicians, high-up politicians in the government here, could well be interpreted as beginning to try and capitalise politically, or indeed to protect themselves as this investigation goes forward.
Charles, thank you very much for that. For now, that is Charles Stratford with the very latest from that news conference and more live in Colombo. Thank you.